Hmm?
We're going to go at
Yeah, we're gonna move right into public comment, to finance, because it kind of segues in. We're gonna talk some more about how we're gonna fund some of these projects and all. So, I think we'll just.
I want 6 minutes.
What's that?
I want 6 minutes.
Okay, well, we'll give you 6
You're
minutes.
cutting
don't
down,
worry.
cutting back a little.
But before we do that, we have some students here tonight, and so we're going to move to the contracts, because I believe we have some students here to talk about item 3E, is that correct? The Four Diamonds Mini-thon. So if board members are okay with that, we'll let them give their presentation about that, and then we'll move back to the agenda.
Students, did you need were you going to do a PowerPoint, or were you just going to speak?
No, just
The podium, please.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Lozano. I'm a junior currently at high school. And I'm Jenna Paff. I'm a senior here at Pennridge.
Hello, my name is Adam Ball. I'm also a senior here at Pennridge, and Phil Gunderson is kindly handing out outlines about Mini-thon. And this is our advisor, Mr. Brown, who graciously agreed to be our advisor this year and take on the monumental task with us. Okay, so how many of you have heard of Penn State's thon before? Are you relatively familiar with? Okay, great. That's a very good start. So Mini-thon is a much smaller scaled back version of that, and that's something we're looking to do this year at Pennridge. It was run for a period of about 3 years, a couple years back, and then that sort of dwindled off. So it's something we're looking to reinstate here at Pennridge. So what is Mini-thon? It's the first thing. It's a fundraising effort to raise money to support the Four Diamonds Fund. So that the Four Diamonds Fund is the organization that the money goes to, and their mission is to conquer childhood cancer by assisting children at the Penn State Children's Hospital, which is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And basically how it works is the money that goes to them is used to support families that have kids with cancer. So it doesn't, it goes to support basically all the needs of a family. So, it'll cover the cost for transportation, their housing, anything. And what's really cool about it is it covers like costs for experimental drugs and stuff, things the insurance doesn't necessarily cover. So that's what we're trying to raise money for. So we're looking to do this at Pennridge. Jenna, Phil, and myself back in August attended a Mini-thon leadership summit out in Hershey. And that was really beneficial for us. We got to sit down with a whole bunch of schools that do this around Pennsylvania and get their take on things and how they go about doing it. So we got a lot of good input from them. And so now we're looking to do it here, and kind of our first order of business is getting our student activities account, because given that the main objective of the entire event is to raise funds for Four Diamonds, we have to have a way of keeping track of those funds. So with that in mind, ideally, throughout the event, we aren't spending any money. We're looking to get things donated so that we can increase the total amount that we're donating to Four Diamonds. And I think we agreed for a first year, a nice goal to have for fundraising efforts would be about $20,000, and we're looking to host our actual Mini-thon event in April, and what that consists of is a dance marathon where students stay on their feet for an extended period of time, and in doing so they're supporting the families with cancer. And between now and, well, as soon as we get the event and running the whole thing approved by the school board, we'd love to hit the ground running with getting it out to the schools so we can start fundraising and doing a whole bunch of different events, hosting events throughout the school year leading up to that so we can really increase the amount of money we're raising. So we talked with Mrs. DeBona about on November 7th, we're going to have a Four Diamonds. He's like one of the assistant directors of Four Diamonds. He's going to come and speak to the school. We'll have probably 2 separate assemblies, and he's going to come talk and kind of kick off the whole event and really, inform the school on what the event's about. It was kind of like, that's how they started off the leadership summit that we got the chance to go to, and they really informed us, what it is Four Diamonds does and, how it benefits people, and it's really cool to see that firsthand and how that works. So we really think with him presenting it to the school, we'll get a really good, can't think of the word. We'll get a really good interest from the student body, and then the following week we'll get more organized and separate students into different committees and whatnot, depending on what aspect they'd like to participate in with running the mini-thon. And then us 4 are sort of going to be the overall heads, organizing everything, making sure everything's run. We'll be managing the account and whatnot with Mr. Brown. So that's where we're at right now with mini-thon.
They're going to manage the money. I guess.
Any questions that we can attempt to answer?
One question, are you all from student council, or are you within a group right now, or just?
So Phil is the president of our senior exec council. I'm the vice president, and Jenna is a very active member, and Vanessa is part of student council. So we're all pretty well versed in handling funds and doing.
The reason I ask is I know in the past when it was held here that it was, I think, student council primarily.
Yeah.
But it involved everybody. And just from my own standpoint, I could speak it. Personally, my son is a junior at Penn State, and he's been involved with that every year from freshman year now. He's on a committee again this year, and I think it's a fantastic thing that it's coming back to Pennridge, because if you've never been to Thon, I encourage you to go, because
it's incredible.
Amazing to see what these kids do. So, I commend you guys for starting this up again. It's a really great thing, so thank you.
If I could just say, I've met with the students, and I also commend them for their efforts, and thank Mr. Brown for overseeing this, because it's a big undertaking, and what I like about it is it involves all the students from many different organizations, and it really supports our district initiative that takes pride with the different characteristics that are going to help these young people to be successful in life, such as empathy and teamwork, collaboration and kindness and all that. So I think it's a great event.
I had a couple of questions. I was just wondering how much, you said it was at Pennridge for 3 years before, so I was wondering
Yes.
how much they raised in the past, if that helped you form your goal of...
I believe over that 3-year period, they raised about 24,000 maybe, was what they raised. And that was, in doing that, that was doing pretty much just the dance marathon itself. There was no extra fundraising throughout the year. It was just having kids pledge to come dance for X amount of hours and be a part of the event without any additional funds coming in. So that's kind of how we formulate our goal. Yes.
Okay. So I have the goals for some schools around, and they have been doing mini-thons for many years. Methacton is their goal for this year is $30,000. Phoenixville is $15,000. Whitehall High School is $3,000. So it kind of all ranges depending on like how hard you want to go, I guess.
And my other question is, since 3 of you are seniors, what is your goal? What's your plan for next year? I mean, do you have the goal that it's going to continue next year? And if you've thought about that.
Yes. Well, since me, Adam, and Jenna are in exec council, and then Vanessa is in student council, we really thought that Vanessa is a junior, so obviously she'll be here next year. But then we also have that reach with the exec council. Obviously, the exec councils have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So we're hoping to bring some of them on board and, kind of get the freshman and sophomore let them get their feet wet with like some leadership experience, and they could help us. So hopefully pass it on, and so we could, kick it off, set a good example, and help some of the younger kids to get some experience while we're doing that.
That's great, thank you.
I have one more question. You had sent us all the information. You said that you went to, out to Hershey, was it, for their informational session there? Because I'm familiar with how they run it out at main campus. Are you planning to run it in a similar fashion, based on like how they break down into committees, things like that?
Yeah, so obviously right now before, we really have a good idea of how the school is going to respond. Things are kind of up in the air, but what we're looking at now is to have that general meeting, and then at that have kids that are interested, maybe text like a certain number and we'll get back to them, just a way that we can convey information to them. And then the following week have a meeting with all those kids that are interested, and then from there sort of break down into more specifics. What we would like to have happen is there'd be a whole bunch of different committees where kids, with different talents and stuff can really excel with those. So just as like a brief example, creative, artsy kids can do posters and a whole bunch of stuff like that for around the school. And kids that are more interested in maybe going into like business and marketing stuff can be, work with like businesses and stuff and be business relations and whatnot, getting things donated, stuff like that. So yeah, in that sense, we are looking to run it like Penn State and kind of mirror that and have like a hospitality committee and stuff, people that provide food and whatnot for the actual event, and at different fundraisers and stuff to have those same jobs. So yes, we are looking to do that. Yep.
Is there any other questions from the board member? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why isn't that under activities?
I assume before they leave, everybody is fine with moving this forward on the agenda, right? Okay. Okay, I guess we'll move back to the agenda. So, we're going to talk, Kathy's going to go over the fund balance commitments first, so.
Okay, if you recall back in June when we passed the budget, we left some open-ended items on our budget when we were talking about fund balance commitments. During the June meeting, we said we were going to commit some funds for future retirement rates increases. We would commit funds for financial software, which we have been doing in the past. And then we would also consider some funds for non-routine maintenance, capital projects, as well as technology. So those are commitments that we had said we would discuss, and what dollar value we would put in there so we could finish our financials. We also said during that time that we would look at what our change in fund balance was during the 13-14 school year. The information I had provided, we did have a change in fund balance, a positive change of $1,719,217. If you'll recall, that $1,000,007 actually came from the fact that we underfunded our health care by $1.5 million. So that's how we arrived at the 1.7. It wasn't a windfall. It was definitely something that we had planned. So this evening, our goal is to determine what we're going to do with that 1.7. As I mentioned, we did talk about the non-routine maintenance and technology, that we would commit funds for that. So those two things, non-routine maintenance was $270,000. Those are things that Mr. Loeffler, during the budget process, we went through, reviewed, things that we were going to purchase. Also technology, $150,000 for technology in this school year's to fund technology. So those two things together, I would ask that we commit those dollar amounts as we had discussed during our budget. We also have commitments for the financial software. We still have $15,986. This will be the second year, really the third year that we're carrying that forward. We still have some things that we have not yet implemented in that system. That money, we can still use it there. Retirement, we currently have $8,609,632 in there. And that leaves us an unassigned fund balance right now of $8,156,377. Right now, I'm asking the subtotal of $1,299,217. That is the amount of money that we need to determine what we want to do. We either leave it in the unassigned, or you can commit it for future non-routine maintenance items within the general fund. You could commit it for future technology if you so desired. You could add it back into the retirement rate increase, or we could transfer that $1.2 million to capital projects to help fund additional capital projects. Last year, we had additional $2 million, and that's what we did. We did transfer that $2 million to help fund capital projects. So certainly would be up to the board for that $1.2 million to make a decision.
I'm sorry, may I ask a question? The 150,000 for technology, is that the one-to-one?
No.
This
That
is
is not the
just
one.
infrastructure?
Infrastructure,
And
right.
an admin?
Right.
Where is that? Where is the one-to-one technology listed?
One-to-one technology is always part of Mr. Smith's budget. He presents that each year as part of program improvement, so it's out of Mr. Smith's budget.
He's not there anymore.
Is the 1.7 part of the 8.1 or not?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is right now. Right now, the unassigned fund balance of $8,156,377 includes the $1.7 million.
I think what we want to do is, before we discuss this a little further, is go into the next thing, which is the capital project fund balance, because these two kind of tie together. You need to know what we need for capital projects before I think you can make an informed decision maybe of what to do with this. So let Kathy go through the next memo that she sent, which was the capital projects.
Can I ask one
Sure.
question about it? So you have the commitments during the budget process at the
Right.
bottom of the page, and it says non-routine maintenance and technology. So you're saying those two things are not in the budget at all, and that's why they have to come out of fund balance?
They are there as an expenditure, but we did not fund them. We underfunded the budget during the budget process. We had a deficit in the budget.
Okay, and so the non-routine maintenance, I can understand, you said that's all the stuff that Mr.
Right.
Loeffler has, but the technology, is there a specific part, that's just infrastructure?
It's infrastructure, and I did not bring that, Mr. Toronto had presented that during his budget process. I did not bring that back.
Is that
to
the
see.
total amount for the infrastructure?
No, this is part of our reoccurring expenditures each year.
Okay,
for
but it was
some
just
maintenance
the amount
agreements.
that we needed to underfund it in order to balance the budget.
Right,
Or
that's
say
how
was
we
coming out of
balance the
funds
budget. That's basically how we balance the budget.
for the last part of it, that we were
Right.
close. Okay,
Right.
all right, thank you.
So, the capital project fund balance, we started in 2013 of having $9,266,134 as the ending balance on June 30th of 2013. We then had the Pliget bond proceeds that we added of $9,252,198.75. And then we have something that we report, and this will be shown on the financial statements for fiscal year 14, committed in construction in progress. That's $7,470,806.89. And that $7 million is made up of construction in progress of $6,426,392, and that's all the summer projects that we currently have going on this summer, because they have not yet been paid out. We also have technology funded at $895,033, and while that looks like a large number, we have 3 years worth of lease payments, and those lease payments are about $175,000 each year. So out of that $800,000, we're going to take 175 times 3, so around $500,000. So really in technology, what's remaining is the $300,000, around $300,000. And then we still have a balance of $149,381 that we're carrying forward that have been part of the commitments for transportation for replacing buses. Again, we've not had that discussion about replacing buses yet, but we still have a little money there. The total commitment is 7.5 million. That leaves us a balance of 5.5 million in the capital projects fund. That basically pays for next year's capital projects, and as Mr. Casper noted, our 5-year plan calls for $14 million. We only have $5 million to put towards that $14 million. So that's why Mr. Sarnes indicated that we had to have this conversation together. It's possible we could bring over another 1.2 million. That would give us about 6.7 million. However, we're still about $8 million short to fund the capital project.
And if you remember, back last time we were discussing the first borrowing, which we did, it was in the plan possibly to borrow a second 10 million. To cover, because we knew that the capital fund was going to be depleted before we got our projects done. So that's number one to keep in mind. The second thing, which Kathy and I were discussing, is we have this $8,609,000 for PESers. In reality, we've been funding PESers in our budget. And it really isn't an ongoing expense. It's going to be high going forward. What Kathy brought up, the problem of using one-time funds to fund it one year is it's not going to go away. It's not a one-time thing. So there is a possibility of transferring that money to capital along with the 1.7, which would pretty much give us about 9.9. Right, Kathy? I think that's what I figured. So that's another option if board members were adverse to borrowing more money. When we talked about borrowing and we did the cash flow summary, if you remember, we had the borrowing spread out evenly as part of the plan. So these are all the things you got to consider. I mean, it's not just what to do with the 1.7, it's how we're going to fund $14 million in the next 3 to 4 years, and how we're going to do that going forward. So,
as we talked about in prior discussions, that money that we put into PESers is money from budget surpluses each year that we would normally have been putting into capital projects as we were going along. However, obviously knowing that this calamity was coming with PESers, we took a short-term plan to put this money in there. The problem that we have, as you say, it would be great if we could recover this money and put it back into capital projects. With the Act 1 index that we're getting, how are we going to make this work? If we do that, and that would be something I would love to say that we're going to do, but I mean, we're really between a rock and a hard place. That if you take the PESers money that we have in the reserve and put it in, you're postponing the inevitable. Now, you could hope for a white knight to show up in Harrisburg, and I think there's enough will to do something, but nobody can come up with a plan that's going to find a way for us to swallow $47 billion in unfunded pension liability. So without some kind of a rescue coming from Harrisburg, how would we do this? Has anybody, I mean, you and I talked a couple of years ago that the combination of using reserves and Act 1 that maybe we could muddle through, I was wrong in that. I think that's really not a feasible option because, as you said, it doesn't go away. What about the savings when we get to the point that our debt service goes down in the 7 or 8 years from now? How do we get to there if that's going to help us?
not, they're all good points. And I don't know, the way the election's looking, it looks like that PESers is not going to go away. I mean, Mr. Wolf has said that he's going to keep the pension, and we're just going going to pay for it somehow, so.
Somehow it's the operative. What's that mean to us? I mean, how can we do this? This doesn't seem reasonable, doesn't seem possible.
Aren't we going to have a change in our accounting for PSERS that's going to affect our financial sort of profile, like next year, I think it is?
Right, 2015, next year, when we do our financial statements, we will have to show our liability for PSERS. They are estimating our liability to be 3 times our annual payroll. So that's about $121 million that will be shown on it's a liability, it'll be shown on our statements. That in itself will have a negative, more than likely will have a negative impact on the rates at which we borrow funds. So if you're going to consider borrowing funds, you're going to want to borrow funds this year because we still have our AA rating, which allows us to have a lower percent interest cost. So again, there's many things here to take into consideration. I wish I could say there's lots of good news here. It's nice that we have $1.3 million that we're talking about, but in the grand scheme of things, it's 1% of our problem.
One fast question, if they put $122 million in a liability on our balance sheet, what's that do to our liquidity? At what point are we considered to be not liquid anymore?
Well, it's all districts, not just us.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not just us. I mean,
Of course, I
everybody
understand that, but
And I think the rating and the agencies and all would take that into
in
account.
consideration.
Because it's nothing changed as far as.
I understand that, yeah, just,
Borrow a lot of money this year and declare bankruptcy.
but it apparently will affect our bond rating if this.
It's yet to be seen. Most folks are thinking there's going to be a downgrading of districts because, again, we're going to have this large liability. I mean, Pennsylvania itself has had its bond rating downgraded because of their own pension liability. So to me, it stands to reason that at some point it's probably going to hit school districts as well.
What's the timeline for deciding?
We need to have a decision by the October 27th board meeting because our fund statements have to be done by October 31st.
If we would decide to borrow, that's something different though, right?
Right, we don't need to have we do not need to have a decision on borrowing dollars. I think at this point, again, because you wouldn't need the additional funding in for another year, you could let the PSERS sit as is for this year. Again, it's just the 270 and the 150 is what I need to have a definite motion. And really the financial software, the future retirement rate increase, non-routine maintenance and the technology, those are the things that I need to have a board action.
Right, and the unassigned fund balance, are we still within the limit?
We're still within the 8%. And again, that's 8% when we do budget, so.
Okay.
4 to 8%, right?
Right, 4 to 8%, but by state law, 8% we're still within.
But that's the maximum.
That's the maximum.
Right, just in our
8%
policy it says.
Our policy says 4 to 8%.
Right.
So I guess what Kathy's saying is, at a minimum for the board meeting coming up, we need to have the approval and committing funds for the non-routine maintenance, the technology, and what was the other one? Was there
The financial software and the retirement rate. I need to state this.
Okay.
One more question, after we put the 1.3 million, if we choose to do that, and I would be in favor of that, to put it in the capital, that brings us down from 8% to, I didn't just do the arithmetic, where does that leave us in the unassigned fund balance after we do the?
I think it'll be around 6.5%.
Okay, the state in general frowns on currently using operating funds from the unassigned fund balance in order for budgetary purposes. Is that below the 4%?
No.
Or in any amount, or how does that work?
No, well, the state does not allow us to have any more than 8%.
Understood.
They don't have a floor yet, I will say yet. It's very interesting with the way the state has changed their auditing practices. You know, we can't have more than 8%, but if you don't have enough, that's probably going to be an audit issue, that you're not managing your funds well. So again, we just need to be very careful that, you know, the 4 to 8% was put in policy when we were going gangbusters with building and we were always adding more and more money. You know, that has stopped over the past couple of years. As I said, the only reason we have 1.7 at all is because we underfunded by 1.5, which means the budget to actual was very close last year.
I'm sorry, I'm a little dense. That 6% that's in there, then, what we did was we approved the budget that wasn't balanced this year with taking some monies that you're now covering from fund balance. Under what I thought I had read or heard in meetings that I had attended that the state doesn't really like you to do that, to be taking some of or funding your budget through your fund balance or some portion of your budget. And I'm trying to understand, is there some kind of a gotcha, some kind of a, yes, you can up to this point, but beyond that, you get in trouble? I just don't understand.
Not legally, there's no legal restriction on us using our fund balance. Now, what the state doesn't want you to see is that you've used up all your fund balance and you're in negative fund balance, and then we become one of those other schools that they're going to come in and take us over. So that's where they would frown upon that.
So we could conceivably go down to 4% based on our 4 to 8% without any repercussions. Thank you.
Absolutely.
At least one of the local school districts, Palisades, uses fund balance every year as part of their budget calculation. They also carry a healthy fund balance, and that's obviously not come back to bite them, at least as yet. Now, it's a wealthy school district. That may be one of the reasons why it has not come back to bite them, but they know that they do that on a routine basis.
Okay, so I guess the questions are board members okay with committing for Kathy, the 270 and the 150? And then the financial software and the other items she has listed there. Okay, and then the 1719, I'm sorry, the 1299, that's it, what's left. I would like to see it go into capital. I don't know what other board members feel, especially since what we've seen from our presentation tonight. Any questions on any of those, or Peter, did you have something?
Just a comment. Once you file your financial statements, Mrs. Johnson, with Harrisburg, I presume since these are committed funds, they could be decommitted and moved at the pleasure of the board.
Absolutely.
At any time.
At any time. The board can, the same action would take place. The board takes board action to commit them. The board takes board action to uncommit them. So again, I'll be asking you, after you commit these last two, the 270 and the 150, I'll be coming back at the next board meeting probably and asking you to uncommit them so that we can actually use them in the 2014-15 school year.
I'm in favor of supporting all the proposals that Mrs. Johnson has made. And the 1.3, it's actually closer to 1.3 million as part of the capital budget for the future.
That's a good idea. Why don't we just round it up to 1.3, if that's all right with you? Okay. Now, looking ahead, I need to get some sense from board members whether they would want to consider borrowing the additional $10 million, because that's something we should do fairly soon, I would think. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 10. You know, what we saw from the presentation was an additional 10, but does not have to be 10. I know that we're talking about a capital campaign to fund some of the stadium upgrades, I guess the 2 million or so that's on there, but keep in mind that that's going to be a long-term project. Usually capital campaigns, people pledge over, several years.
What we approved was that sponsorships or donations of $10,000 or larger could be paid out over 10 years.
So that could actually be money we need for future projects, because we've only looked at 3 years going out. So, that's, I guess, keep that in mind too. But, so what, you want to say something?
Well, in the first place, look, we're trying to close a gap to cover 14 million or approximately where we're at to there. And there's some big projects in there that we have to take care of, fencing, security. But I think we really have to watch, and there's a lot of smaller things in there. And really might have to not get to all the good, all the perfect world type things. And I hate to say that. I think I have to say it, but we've done a good job, the past, I think, in this district 8 years or so, of bringing everything up into a good state of repair. So the way you start getting it in a bad state of repair is to start cutting the little things out. So I recognize that. But I still think it needs to be said that we need to watch those things, because we're kind of getting away from the big ticket items. I mean, it looks that way. But I think we really need to be watchful of that stuff. And who knows if we do this study, what that's going to tell us. Maybe we'll be looking at a new school in 3 years or 4 years. I mean, that would be a catastrophic event, perhaps. So, I think the boards in the past, and ours too, is doing a good job keeping the facilities together. And, we don't want to set future boards up to have to, be left with a mess. And at the same time, we don't want to have to leave the boards broke. So it's going to be a dance. That's what I want to say. And if we can borrow money now that's cheap and paid over time, no one likes doing it. Get beat up for it in the newspapers, and we don't like it. But that's what we're getting paid for up there. Make those decisions.
You're getting paid.
Other comments? Would you like our bond council to come back then in November for the next meeting, and we'll have a chance to think about it, and we'll run through those again? Okay, we'll do that then. Anything else you need on this, Kathy? Okay. All right, then let's move on to the contracts for approval. I'll just briefly go through these, and if there's any questions, let me know. The first is Rich Moyer Lawn and Landscape for snow removal services. I'm assuming this is additional services that we may need. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah, it's really quick transportation there.
Okay.
The bus garage.
So it's an hourly rate as needed. Okay. Item B is Kids Peace National Center's subscriber agreement, again, per student day. C is Pennsylvania School for the Deaf. Once again, it's a per student day. And Foundations, Behavioral Health Services. E, we went over, that's the 4 diamonds. F is the grad images, the graduation photography, and that's parent paid. FitnessGram, health care software. Is that new, or is that what we doing?
No, that is new. That is replacing a very old program that the phys ed department has been using. So that will be new.
Okay, and then the last one is the yearbook agreement from Johnston's. for Central. What's that? Oh, so we got a couple more here. I'm sorry, I don't have my thing up. Okay, great. Okay, so National Constitution Center for a trip for North Middle School. And then First Savings Bank of Purpose, okay, advertising agreement for 5 years. Bart? You like that?
I think not to say anything since that's the only reason why I showed up. Good news, of your $2 million, we only have $1,960,000 to go. It's the first draft of an agreement. Understand that this is drafted by our solicitor. Today is a banking holiday, so the bank has not had a chance to review it, but back and forth, I'll have to get that done. The goal was to bring it to you to let you know that we have our first one and hopefully to get it approved at the October board meeting, provided both sides can work it out. So it may not be exactly the way you read it, but it's the first one, and we're hoping to have another one fairly soon. So thank you for the board members that are working on the ad hoc funding committee to work on this. Are there any questions for me?
I have a question for you. Of course, it doesn't relate to this topic.
Of course.
What is the October 1 enrollment in this district? I assume you know that.
I don't know that. I have it on my desk because I have been keeping track of the last Pennsylvania Economy League study and letting you know what they projected for each year, what the actual October 1st number was, and I'm going to have that at for the superintendent's report at the October board meeting, so you can see the variance by grade level, not just by the whole district. We're about 260 kids different than I think what they projected, but it's different by grade level. So you'll have that in a spreadsheet that I'll hand out on that meeting, but I'll be working on those numbers and giving it to you. So obviously each year we get further away from the original study. The percentage that we're out is off. Actually, we're underneath what they originally projected. So the economy, we have to take a look at what they've done and what's going on. So I will have that for you at the board meeting, but I'll have it just the way you want it, Dr. Garnell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Brevard, I have a question. In the agreement, it has 20 years. I was just wondering, does that...
I don't think the bank is interested in that. I think they want a longer term. So that's what I'm saying. It's not going to be done. This was the first crack by our solicitor. We do not have the input of the bank people.
Okay.
He finished it Friday afternoon. I went down Friday morning to work on it with them. He launched it Friday afternoon, and they're not in today. So I talked to the representative who was pushing this proposal, and she said we won't have anybody to talk about it until Tuesday. So I said it may not be that way. So there may be some changes in it.
Okay, and then just one thing I noted in the term, it says the district shall endeavor to install the advertisement on or before September 1st, 2016. Shouldn't that say 2015? Is that our goal, or is it really 2016?
I think that our goal for the district is to have it sooner than that, so I'll look at that as well. So it was their first draft.
Okay.
So they'll have that. They had to change a few things that I was down with. But before they do any more work and you're paying whatever you're rating, paying per hour, let's find out what the bank wants and then get it back. So.
All right, thank you.
Well, if I have it in better form, I will bring it to next Monday night's meeting we're going to have another ad hoc committee meeting after the special meeting. So what I have, I'll bring back to you. But it's good news.
I'm about false.
Going once.
Thank you, Dr. Lombardi. All right, so of items A through J, is there any any other questions from board members on any of those?
Can I get an explanation about Kids Piece? Is that an alternative program? Is it one student who's going there? It wasn't clear from reading the contract. It seems like it's one student.
I assume this probably should be referred to Dr. Phillips, since it's...
Say resident pupil. It's a resident pupil.
Any Any other questions on any of these? Okay, so these will all be on the October board meeting for approval. Item 4, there's 2 other settlement agreements. Once again, if you have any questions on those, I guess you should contact Dr. Phillips. And then we have this student activity account requests. So we have Central Middle Yearbook, Central Middle General Purpose, Central Middle Student Council, Central Middle Drama, High School Class of 2018, High School Pennant Yearbook, and the High School Future Business Leaders of America. And many times that, so I was just thinking, well, that's a new one. So that the future business leaders and the mini-thon will be new ones, you're saying? Okay, and the rest are renewals?
No, it's solicitor.
All right, we're almost there. Item 6, Kathy wants to, believe it or not, talk about next year's budget already. So we'll let her.
Okay, included in your packet was a copy of the Act 1 timeline. Mr. Sarnes and I had spoken earlier, and it, we believe we're going to need to have a few more dates for which you might like to have some meetings, especially prior to adopting the preliminary budget in February. Yes, February. Yes, February. So, not that we have to set the meetings tonight, but I think if you want to bring your calendars to the next meeting so that we can start to look at what dates in February, January and February, we could have an additional meeting or 2 to discuss the preliminary budget. Again, the preliminary budget is the preliminary budget. The final budget does not end up looking at all. It will be, I want to say well, probably will be out of balance, but we also, if you recall, we don't get our retirements until April, so I cannot take any retirements into consideration when I build that preliminary budget, because to do so might provide false hope that we look better than what we're actually going to look. So, again, I don't want anyone to have heart failure when they see the preliminary budget, because we do work then throughout the rest of the months to bring that down to a reasonable number.
Move money around and bury it.
So when do we have to make the decision as to whether we're going for exceptions or not? What's that?
Gotta get your eyes checked. Sparkle.
That is March.
December 30th?
No, exceptions. Somewhere between February and March, because the state has to get back to us by March 25th, so it will be in February that we need to make that determination if we're going to go for exceptions.
When will you start actually working on the budget?
Actually, all the site information has gone out to the sites. They are currently working on their information. They are to have things back to me right around the Thanksgiving holiday. Dr. Radigan and I will start meeting with them in December so that Dr. Radigan can look it over and say, yes, she's in agreement with what they're asking for. Or no, they have to take, right off the bat, there's might be things already that might not fit with what we're currently doing. So Dr. Radigan and I will do that in December so that I can get that to you in January prior to the meetings.
So at the November finance meeting, then we'll set those meeting dates if everybody can bring their calendars. And then the final item is, once again, I guess there was 2 repository sales. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Good. I believe, if I'm reading those right, they did not meet our guidelines. Is that correct?
Those are things that we had discussed. That's correct. We had talked with Attorney Cox that perhaps we would set guidelines if the amount that they're bidding on doesn't equal the amount of taxes due that we would not entertain. I mean, a $25 bid for this property seems to be a very lowball bid for those two properties. Again, they don't have any road frontage, and we understand that they're landlocked. But even at that, they just do have some other value.
So you need to respond before the board meeting, is that?
But you know what, since we're having a special board meeting next week, we can put this on the agenda to approve or not approve.
Okay. Are board members basically in agreement not to approve these, is that? Okay.
So we'll add those to the special board meeting then for next week.
Do we need to come up with, I think it was in the items, and I know we've talked about it before, having some sort of statement or policy so that you, if it doesn't meet the taxes, that you could just say no, that you have board approval to do that? Do we need to do that, or, because it keeps coming up now, it didn't come up for many years, and now it seems to be happening more often.
And if you notice, it's all in the same township, so I'm not quite sure what's going on in that township. I can certainly speak with Attorney Cox tomorrow to see if he can come up with some sort of resolution that we could pass at the next board meeting. Again, we can bring that to you on next week, but you could wait and pass it if you wanted to at the formal board meeting at the end of the month.
All right, I believe that's it, right? Okay. Now, Mr. Linden, it's time for public comment.
Almost fell asleep.
6 minutes.
Robert Linden, West Rock Hill. Congratulations first on the no parking post out there. I think they worked great. There wasn't any cars there. Step in the right direction. I saw progress. In reference to the books, Kathy Johnson talked about not being able to get rid of the books. I bought books last week and I bought books this week. I think I'm going to end up with another bid tomorrow. And I'm able to find schools that take these books. And I think that there are probably plenty of schools that will take books. So I don't think necessarily dumping them is the right thing to do. In all cases, maybe you want to change the lot sizes, because the lot sizes vary. You have some with 100 books and some with 1,000 books. It's difficult for people to bid on 1,000 books, especially when the age of the books is very diverse, going from the 70s to the 90s. 20-year difference in the age of the books. People might not want to buy 1970 books, but they might want to buy 1980, 1990 books. And I got into a bidding thing today if somebody wanted the books. So there's some demand out there, and I think there's more demand than you realize. I think you could look into that. Unless you're opposed to giving books to other schools that aren't as fortunate as Pennridge. You could have a garage sale too. You have a big garage, I think. So you could have a Pennridge surplus store for all your surplus goods. People will come and buy things for cheap, and they'll probably steal half of it. So you could get rid of that one too. I think on the case of the parking lot, isn't that something you have to do? Isn't that handicap parking lot required by the code? So isn't that decision easily made? You've got to do it. You can't get away without doing it. You might get away for a year or two or something like that, but you're going to have to do it. So isn't that a no-brainer decision? Shouldn't you just calculate that in the budget already? And if you
if it's the drainage is a problem, couldn't you just do one plan for the larger drainage and maybe just build half of it? I don't know, Mike can comment on that. I'm just looking for options here. And then as a last resort, there's always, you could just borrow a lot of money this year and then declare insolvency next year. The state will come in and take care of everything and raise the cigarette tax and it'll be okay.
Carlon, did you have?
Yes, I did.
Sue Furlong, West Rock Hill Township. Until just a minute ago, I had only one thing I wanted to say anything about, but now I have two. So I'll take my whole 6 minutes, perhaps. The budget, where Ms. Johnson says she cannot estimate what we call breakage, I find that to be a very disingenuous remark. This is a budget with forecasting. You look at past years and how many people were eligible for retirement, how many people took it, perhaps that's 80%. Then you look at how many people are eligible this year and you maybe go conservative and go 70%, and you put that amount in your budget to lower how much money has to be raised in taxes. You estimate every other item on the budget, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't estimate your breakage. For that not to be in the budget, as I said, is a very disingenuous thing. It's only a means by which she sends this inflated budget down to Harrisburg, and then we get the exceptions and we raise taxes more than what is deserved on the taxpayer. That was item number 2, actually. Item number 1, I texted a friend of mine during the meeting, and they will take any and every book that you have no home for. They prefer not to pay for it because they're a charitable organization, but we will back up the trucks to your shop, and you show us the books that you don't want, and we will take them away, and you don't have to worry about them. And they will go to a good cause.
We got bookworms.
My name is Shelley Weinberger. I'm from Berkeley. This is my first time here, so I'm new at all this. I have a child that is in high school, and I have a child that is in middle school, which to me is still elementary since he just entered in. Halloween night game, it's going to be virtually impossible for me to be in 2 places at one time. I don't understand why we can't change that game to a different date, and at 4 o'clock, for me to be able to help out with the marching band, which my son is part of, so that the senior parents can be there for their children, that also is impossible. I cannot make it there before 4 o'clock because I have a job. So the time being at 4 o'clock is really ridiculous for the parents to be able to be there for their children in such a great honor for them. Things need to be looked at as what the parents have to go through to be there on Halloween, where they have one child that wants to be out trick-or-treating and one child that has to be on the field for whatever his or her duty might be. And then there's the parent trying to figure out which way to go and what to do. Is there any way that it can be looked at to change the date of the game also? It's a Thursday, Saturday, something. Well, Saturday probably not, but.
I just have a question. I don't have an answer to that question in regard to changing the date, but I'm assuming it would possibly be our AD that would address that, correct? But, and I believe, I got your email. You sent us an email in regard to the whole topic of the 1031 Papa Yoder game. And in there, and now you stated about a 4 o'clock game start. Where was that information